Looks like, yay, it's finally online. So, tanse everyone. Oki, bonjour, welcome. I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful day. Tanshi. My name is Chantal. I am Cree, Anishinaabe, and Métis from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. And I'm just really thankful to be able to share in a good way, share teaching, share stories, share songs. Sometimes I usually start at 7 o'clock, but it has been a crazy week. So, on average, so I'm going to say 7-ish. 7-ish is when I start. But I'm just really thankful and humbled to be here. I live in Mohkinstsis, which is Treaty 7 territory, and I always acknowledge that because it's been my home for over half my life, and I love it here. There's something really special about Mohkinstsis, the way that the rivers come together, the energy here, how it brings community together. It's really given me a place to build community, to, call home and build friendships that, I consider my family. And so to welcome everyone, I wanted to just acknowledge the land upon which we stand, because it's important to know where you are, or you don't know where you're going and you get lost, which is terrible. And so I acknowledge the Blackfoot of Siksika, Gaina, and Pagani. I acknowledge one of my elders, Clarence Wolfleg, who has gifted me the name Red Singer. And I'm really, really thankful and humbled for that name. Just because there's not a word for pink in Blackfoot, so it's Red Singer. But it's just a gift to be able to share that in a good way. And I'm really thankful for all of the guidance from many of my elders from those nations, from many of my friends and my family members from those nations, and I'm very thankful. I want to acknowledge the Tsutsuna, and they're also the Stony Nakota, the Beaver people. And the gifts that I have learned out there. I connected so much to the land out there with the weaselhead and the river and the animals. Now with the ring road, it's a little bit more difficult, so you got to go a little deeper, but I'm really thankful to be welcomed in a good way into ceremony out there. I also want to acknowledge the Stony Nakota of Morley, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nation, the Eahey Nakota. I have also done so much out there, so many ceremonies, and I've learned from so many wonderful people with great senses of humor, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Indigenous nations is we have this sense of humor, this sense of connection, this sense of, laughter in the face of adversity, and all of the stuff that we have gone through, we still may remain, gentle and kind and compassionate, and I think that really shows resiliency. And so I acknowledge all of those nations. I also acknowledge the Métis Region 3. Usually I wear my Métis sash, but I've already packed it, so I'm going on a trip tomorrow. So I'm going to probably end this pretty quickly today, which is, well, technical issues is why I didn't start super early either. But yeah, I'm just really thankful to have this platform to be able to share, and I'm going to be working on some songs over the next month, and hopefully be able to share those songs as well, because I think it's really important to let Creator work through you, and the work and the songs that I'm sharing are really just driven in that way to, help community in a good way, to bring light and information, and honor all of our histories, our joint histories, and our connections to each other. And so to welcome everyone in, speaking of which, I would like to share with you the Cree welcome song. Traditionally, when we sing songs, we sing in rounds of 4 to honor the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. But this song is a little bit different. We sing it in rounds of 3, and that's to keep the circle open and welcoming so everyone completes the circle today. Because in a circle, we're all connected. There's no beginning, there's no end. No one is greater or less than anyone else in the circle, just like in the hoop of life. So it teaches us to honor each other. Yes, that is the word, for those differences. Because if we were all exactly the same, the world would be incredibly boring, and nothing would ever get accomplished. And so, Mia Sin, I thank the Natahau family from Sturgeon Lake for sharing this song, for sharing the stories behind the song, and for really keeping the song alive, because it really has been instrumental in the journey of welcoming people into the circle in a good way. So Mia Sin doesn't just mean welcome, it also means beautiful. I'm gonna slide my chair out of the way. My board hiding my mess. It's great. Also, all my ribbon skirts are in the washer right now, so hence not wearing my ribbon skirt today. But I am being humble with my dress. Mia sin, mia sen, ha semina, ha semina, e peita kote, ni wagomagan, hota. miyasen, miyasen, hasemina, hasemina, epe takote, niwagomagan, hota, homa, kintaskino, miyasen, miyasen, hasemina, hasenina, epe takote, niwagomagan, hota, homa, kitaskino. Hi, hi, and welcome to the circle today, everybody. So, whoop, I forgot I couldn't step backwards. I might have to tilt that up a little bit. So I'm going to just tilt this just a touch. Whee! There we go. Just so you can actually see me and I don't have to walk all the way back because there's a big box of sound equipment behind me because I will be recording this month. And so I wanted to share with you a few of the songs that I wrote that I will be recording. Some of them I wrote with organizations, some of them I wrote with events, and some of them just came through me in ceremony. Like the Chickadee song, which has been amazing to be able to share it with so many kids and communities and schools, and it's just such a blessing. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Yours too. So this song I wanted to share was actually written when I did a project with Audrey Lane, and we went out on the land and I sat with the animals, and this song kind of came through my my spirit guide, which is the blue jay. And the blue jay is really interesting. It's really an amazing bird because it can actually mimic the calls of a lot of other birds. And the reason it does that is if there's a bird that has been abandoned, like a baby bird that has been abandoned, or the parents have like died, if it finds it, it will actually take care of it until it is big enough to fly. And so it actually like takes care of the community, which I think is such a beautiful thing about that bird. Also, when we look at it, it does look blue. It's really, really striking. But if we look closer, it actually is brown. It has these filaments that reflect the light. So it's like, I'm blue or am I? And so it's got this really interesting, almost shapeshifter way about it, just with the color alone, and with its voice it can shapeshift into other birds and other animals, which is pretty interesting. But it's really that connection to community. It'll warn birds if there's danger in their languages. It will warn birds if there's a good score. So we sometimes if we don't eat all of our donuts that I bring back from my trips, they will end up in the front yard, and the birds love them, and you will know as soon as they have heard, or they have picked up that there's actually donuts in the front yard, because you will hear the blue jay just like, there's donuts, oh my gosh. And so she will give a heads up if there's something there after she's had her fill. So a couple weeks ago I put a whole bunch of peanuts out and she was feasting, and then when she was finally done, then she let out her call to let everyone else know, which was so beautiful. And so yeah, I love that sense of humility in the birds, that sense of never taking yourself too seriously, but that sense of community that really the birds foster when they speak to each other. And so yeah, this is the ancestral bird song that I wrote for, well, I didn't really write it. It came through me for Wild Constructs, because it just kind of came through me on the spot. And I had to record it so I remembered that, so I could repeat it. Because sometimes those songs come through me and I don't remember them after. So I just got to get back in the habit of remembering. And so this is the ancestral bird song. We are ah, way, oh. Way, ah, way, 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 ah, way, oh. Awesome. So that was one of a few. So I also carried a song that I wrote for my girls. So the story behind the song is I was at an event. I'm actually going to load up the song as I was talking because it's important to remember the words fully and completely. I'm slowly learning my language, and so sometimes I have to write that down and remember it phonetically and then actually learn. But that's important, and I think as we write songs in our mother language, I think we learn a lot more about ourselves, about the connection to the words, and about our connection to our ancestors. And so I think it's such an important, beautiful thing. Awesome. Thank you, Donna. And so when I was at this event, basically it was a dinner series, and we all had kinship themes on each table. So whether that be sister or brother or father or mother or grandfather or grandmother. And I was seated at the table, daughter. And at the time I was like, oh, well, that's weird, because I didn't have girls. I have two boys. And at the time, that was all. And so I thought, okay, daughter, how am I going to do this? You know, from experience as a daughter. Okay, there we go. As knowing many daughters. Okay, perfect. Well, my mom's a daughter. And so my kokum, you know, was a daughter as well. So I was thinking more about those, like along kinship in those terms of like, we are someone's daughter, or she is someone's daughter, or, you know, our daughters together. And then I thought about murder, missing Indigenous women, and how, you know, so many of people that my friends, and that I've kind of adopted as family members, you know, they've lost their daughters as well. And I thought about that horrendous heart wrench, but also the gift that it was to have the time with their daughters. And so that's really kind of those thoughts that were coming through me when I was trying to create this song, but it just wasn't coming. And then right before this event was supposed to happen, my girls moved in with me. So they came into my care through kinship care, and I'm slowly but surely, it's quite a process adopting them fully and completely. But yeah, all of a sudden I had daughters. And then when I spoke to my elder about it, so my elder's from the same reserve that they're from. And so of course it made sense to sit with her and talk about these lyrics and talk about what I wanted to say with the song. And as we were talking just about the language, the song came through and came to me. And so this song, Kitanis, Otanisu means her daughter. Kitanis means your daughter. Nitanis means my daughter, and Kitanisanao means our daughters. And so it's really about acknowledging those kinship connections that we have through our daughters. And I'm hoping to make a masculine one as well for my sons. But that's my next project. And so yeah, this is the daughter song, or just as I call it, daughter. And it is to honor my girls and all of our girls. Kakiane, wakimakano, sakehitoen, sakehitoen, otanisu, sakehitoen, weyo, weyo. Sake itoen kakiane wakimakano sake itoen sake itoen kakiane wakimakano Sakihitoen, Sakihitoen. So yeah, I was just really thankful for the opportunity, and it's just that gift, their gift to me, that opportunity was a gift to me. And I think every time we look at the gifts that we have as opposed to what we don't have, we tend to see our life in a better way. And so I'm going to close that, and I'm going to share the next song with you, which, I'm kind of, what am I feeling? I'm kind of feeling the bear song. I've been singing it quite a bit lately, and it's just that reminder of, that connection that we have to the bear and to what we can learn from them, and really how we should respect them. It's tourist season, and people are not exactly smart, realizing bears can kill you. Be smart about it. We forget to speak to the bears, and we've forgotten the connection that we have to the bears. So now they are dangerous because they don't understand us and we don't understand them. And to think of a time, there's many of our stories where the bear spoke with us and spoke to us and taught us these beautiful things. And I think we need to come back to that time where we respect and honor the animals as equals. We're not above creation or below creation. We're part of it. And so the bear was really instrumental in teaching us that. We eat the exact same things as the bear, and it's really about honoring what we have to learn from the bears. So bears would harvest specific things at specific times, and that's how we would know, okay, it's time to eat these things. Like the tubers, the bears in the fall would actually start to dig up all of like the yams and the squash and those things, like, or the yams that were like underground, like the beets and things like that. And so this is how we figured out to start harvest those things at that time. We knew, okay, this is the harvest moon, this is when we harvest those things, because that's when the bear would start digging for them, because they can smell it. And it's the same with the berries. It would know when the berries were ripe, so we would watch the bear and be like, oh, it's berry picking time, because the bears would be like, covered in berry goo. And yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever seen a rabbit eat like a blueberry and it's all over their face. It looks pretty violent, but it's not. It's actually quite hilarious. Same thing with the bears. We'd be like, oh, the bears are covered in like that purple goo. We knew it's time to pick berries. Also, if it was only hunting a particular type of animal that year, we knew that's the animal to hunt that year. Only hunting elk, only hunt elk. And the bear also would teach us about medicines. The bear knew what to eat for medicines. It knew how to put specific types of mud on it if it had, a scrape or a cut, or if it had, encountered some, itchy poison oak. It would know, and we would watch it to be like, oh, this is how we solve these problems, because they were very, very similar to us. They were brothers, our family, and so we really honor the bear for all that it teaches us, what it teaches us to eat, what it teaches us not to eat, and about timing, because it teaches us when to go to sleep and when to wake up. That's what hibernation is all about. And we always watch the bear to know how to get ready for winter. If the bear is super fat, it's going to be really cold, so you better make some plans to go visit your cousins down south, or you better make sure you're really extra packed. And so, yeah, this is the Anishinaabe bear song, and I learned it from a couple different elders of mine. Sharon Pruitt Turner and Carrie Moore shared it with me. Olive Manitoba shared it with me. I just love this song, and it's cool how there's so many different versions. I share the community version. So this is the bear song. say, Mani tu maka, hey Anishinaabe. Wea Hawaii, wea Hawaii, ya wela weo. Wea Hawaii, wea Hawaii, ya wela weo. Mani tu maka, kami nana say, Mani tu maka, hey Anishinaabe. Awesome. Woo, my house is really hot right now, so it's very hard to stay cool. And so, one of the other songs that I'm going to put on my album. Oh, I feel weird saying my album. That's weird. I actually wanted to share the chickadee story. And so the chickadee has been the one who's gifted me a song. And so this chickadee story and the chickadee song, they go hand in hand. But also in the chickadee story, there's an owl. So I'm writing an owl story as well. Or owl song as well. So I'm not going to be writing it. I'm going to go hang out with them. I'm going to go camping and just let them speak through me. Because it's such a gift. And so, oh, thank you, Roxy. And so this song is, it's about the chickadee. And the chickadee teaches us so many things. It teaches us how to listen. This is why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. But it teaches us how to really pay attention and to come into that conversation with joy, because they always sound so joyful when they're talking to each other. And we don't want to talk to each other when we're miserable. We want to talk to each other when we're joyful. So it's really about sharing those good things, not focusing on the bad, although, you know, sometimes you do have to get those things off your chest, but then focus on the good as well. It's that joy when we have those conversations. That's so important. It's that joy of connecting to community and that joy of communication, which is such a gift. And the chickadee and all other birds, oh my goodness. They have this innate ability. They actually shut down a part of their brain when another bird is speaking to them. And so that makes them more receptive. It's their language capacitor, so that they can't actually talk over another bird. I heard about this on the CBC and I was like, oh, science proving something we've done for 1,000 years again? And that's amazing. And so it was such a blessing to hear that story. And I'm like, ah, that totally makes sense. But yeah, there's actually a few birds that talk really, really quickly. They had like one bird on the radio that they did the study with that it sounded like one bird talking, but it was actually 2 birds like just going very, very quickly, warbling back and forth to each other. And then they showed the MRIs of them, and it looked like their brains were flickering on and off as their mouths were opening and closing. It was the craziest thing. So I love science. I'm sorry, I just totally nerded out there for a second, but it was amazing. And so on to the chickadee story. So a long, long time ago, and there was a couple, and they had their 2 children. Their 3 children. They had 2 boys and 1 girl. And their boys were always really, really full of energy, full of life. You know, they used to climb trees, skip stones, just do things that kids love to do. They love to explore further and further and further away. And they were inseparable, those 2. They would always just chat back and forth to each other like they were finishing each other's sentences. And it was just such a gift to hear them talking back and forth to each other. And they had big, beautiful hair that was always pulled back, and it looked like little black caps, and those very curious eyes and those big grins. They always looked like they were smiling with their, you know, grinning, just mischievous looks to them. And their mothers just, their mother and their father just loved them to pieces. And then they had a sister. So their daughter, she was also very, very curious, but the way she explored the world was silently. She was always observing, always looking. She had big golden eyes that just absorbed everything she was looking at and everything she was learning. And she had these beautiful freckles that just covered her very being. And so she was really unmistakable and very recognizable, as were those boys with those black caps. And so together they would always go to the same spot to go hunting year after year. And the mother and father would do the same thing that they would do every year. They would feed the kids lunch in the teepee, and then they would let them go explore. And the kids loved this because they got to explore further and further and further every year the older they got. And so the mother and father kissed their kids goodbye, and the mother always told the same story to her children. Children, make sure that you're not out when grandfather sun is at its highest, because as your shadows start to disappear, he gets lonely and he might take you for his own. So you want to make sure that you're in the teepee in time to eat your lunch. And so the kids are like, yeah, okay, okay, Mom. Just thinking that was Mom's way of saying get to lunch on time. Didn't really think much of it. And then she said, but at night, children, you have to make sure that when Grandmother Moon is inching her way higher and higher and higher into the sky, that you are in the teepee before she's at her highest. Because as your shadows disappear, she gets lonely too, and she might take you for her own. And they laughed and they said, okay, Mom, thinking that was just Mom's way of saying, get to bed on time. And so they didn't really think much of it. But the parents always share that story. The mom always shared that story with her kids. The mom and dad kiss their kids goodbye, kick their kids goodbye, bye, no, kiss their kids goodbye. And they went hunting as the kids went off exploring. And as they were going into their hunting grounds, they saw a big bear. And the bear came to them and said, hey, so just a heads up, this year there is an abundance of animals. There are so many animals that you might lose track of what you're taking from the earth. But remember, if you take more than what you need from the earth, Mother Earth will take something from you, because we always have to honor that exchange. And the mother and father agreed, and they said, of course, of course. They always knew how to hunt in a good way, and so they didn't really think much of it. But then they lost sight of each other. The mother went down into a valley, and in the valley there was tons of moose, and a deer, and a lot of elk, and even some emu, which was quite surprising for the valley. There was never any emu in the valley, and buffalo, sorry. But they didn't really think much of it, and she was like, there is no way my husband is going to find this many animals wherever he is. There was even tons of wapoos, tons of rabbits everywhere. And she thought, you know what? I'm going to just hunt everything we need for the year. I'm just going to get it done. It's all here. It's in such abundance. And so she did. She hunted everything they needed for the year. And then the father, who had taken a very different path, was out in this huge clearing, this huge field. And there was tons of emu, tons of buffalo. And there was even some elk and some deer. And then there was even a few moose, which was quite surprising, because usually moose tend to stick a little bit more towards water and valleys. But they were in just such abundance that he was like, there is no way my wife is going to find this many animals wherever she is. And they're probably just all here. So I'm going to just hunt everything that I need for the year, everything that our family needs for the year, and it'll be great. And so he did, hunted everything they needed for the year. And so by the time they both got back to camp, they realized the mistake that they had made. They had taken twice as much as they needed from the earth. And they knew this could be really bad. So they said, okay, well, we never let anything go to waste. So we'll make sure that we have all of this abundance, and we will spread it around the village so that the elders or the sickly or people who are doing work for the community, that they will have extra meat for the year. And so this is a gift to them. But they knew there was no way they could transport twice as much meat in their little wagon, so they had to make a decision. So they decided, okay, so the first round, they're going to just load up the entire wagon with meat, and they're going to take that first load back to the village, which was about a two-day voyage there, 2-day voyage back. And then they told their children this is what was going to happen. And they said, now the kids were pretty old, like they're older, that they could take care of themselves. So the mother made sure she made a lot of pemmican for the next day, and for that 4-day journey, not only for themselves, but for their children to eat while they were gone. And then she kissed her children goodbye. And this was after lunch, because they knew they could make good time and then good time back. And so they said, remember, children, don't go out when the sun's at its highest, because as your shadow disappears, grandfather's son gets lonely and he might take you for his own. And remember, don't go outside at night when grandmother moon's at her highest, because she'll get lonely too and might take you for her own. And the children just laughed and said, of course, Mom, of course, thinking, oh, Mom just wants us to get home in time for lunch and for bedtime. And so they didn't think much of it. And so they waved goodbye to their parents, and they started exploring further and further and further than they had ever explored before. It was such a wonderful day that they almost lost track of time, but they were hungry. Their tummies let them know what time it was. And so they came home and they ate a beautiful dinner of all the pemmican that their mom had left for them, and some of the dried meat and other things that they had cooked on sticks. Fresh meat over the fire on sticks is the best. And so they ate, and their bellies were full, and they were really thankful, and then they fell asleep. The next day, they woke up very curious as to what was going on in the world around them. So they started to wander further and further and further away from camp, really pushing how quickly they could get back to camp. And as they did, they wandered further and further, and then they realized, oh no, their shadows were starting to disappear. Grandfather's sun was almost at its highest, and so they looked at each other and said, we better run home, totally joking. But then they started running faster and faster and faster and faster, and then they dove into the teepee just as Grandfather's sun hit its highest point in the sky. And then they laughed and they laughed, saying, oh, that was just Mom's way of saying get to bed on time, or get home in time for lunch. And so they laughed. Like, how could Grandfather's sun take you for his own? That's just silly. And so they laughed some more. They finished eating lunch. And then they went wandering further and further and further out. They wandered so far. And the brothers were, of course, playing the way that they play, running around, playing tag, climbing trees, hiding. They always knew their sister's favorite spot, so it didn't matter how quiet she was. She was always, always found. But they had such a long day playing, and the brothers were exhausted. And so they all went back. They had a wonderful supper, and the brothers quickly fell asleep. But the sister, with her big golden eyes, was curious as to what was outside in the night. And so she slowly tiptoed to the teepee door. She let herself out and very quietly started touching the earth around her, looking at Grandmother Moon, who was big and beautiful and wide in the sky. Grandmother Moon was so full and looked so close you could almost touch her. She was so bright, and her light just lit up the whole world like that beautiful color of the wintertime, that blue and white haze. Everything looked so beautiful. She continued to wander further and further and further out until she came to an unfamiliar clearing. This clearing was beautiful. There was these flowers she had never seen before. They only bloomed at night, which she thought was remarkable. She looked at them with her golden eyes, and she put her freckled nose in them, and she smelled them, and then, oh, they smelled divine. They smelled like her very favorite smells, all mushed into one. What an amazing flower. The flower itself looked like the color of the moon, and it looked like her favorite skirt when she was swished back and forth. So it seemed like this is the most amazing flower. The flower was so distracting. She didn't even realize that Grandmother Moon was creeping higher and higher and higher into the sky until she looked down and she realized her shadow was almost gone. Oh no, Grandmother Moon was almost at its highest, and so she started to run faster and faster and faster back to camp until she didn't hear her feet on the ground anymore. All she could feel was the wind rushing past her face. It was just silence. She felt so free. She outreached her arms and she felt like she was floating. No, she felt like she was flying, and then she looked down and her feet weren't below her. She looked to the side and to the other side, and her arms, they weren't arms at all. They were wings. All that was recognizable were her beautiful freckles. And she knew, oh no, Grandmother Moon had taken her for her own. She had to go tell her brothers, and so she flew back to camp. And as she dove towards the door, she tried to open the teepee, but birds can't open teepees, no matter how big they are. And so she knew she had to warn her brothers that her mom was right. Her mom was telling the truth. Grandmother Moon had taken her for her own. And so she sat up in the tree, and she waited for her brothers to wake up to warn them. And she waited, and she waited, and she waited. And as the sun got higher in the sky, her eyes got heavier and heavier and heavier until she fell fast asleep. And then her brothers woke up. She said, where's her sister? Sister, where are you? Sister, where are you? Oh, she has to be playing a trick on us. And so together they left the teepee. They made sure they had some snacks with them because they were always really snacky. And they started wandering further and further, calling out to her, Sister, where are you? Sister, where are you? And no matter where they looked, they couldn't find her. They looked in all of her favorite hiding spots. They drove down deeper and deeper and further away from camp until they ended up in this unfamiliar clearing, a place that they had never been before. It was such an amazing place. And they saw these funny flowers that they had never seen before. They were big and round, and their petals were all along the outside, and some of them were red and some of them were yellow. Well, most of them were yellow and bright orange. They were amazing. They were kind of the brothers' favorite colors, was like red and yellow and orange. They loved these flowers, and the seeds in the center were so big. They thought, I wonder what those taste like. And so they grabbed some, and they were snacking. And the seeds were great. The shells not so much. And then they realized that the flower, it was following the sun. They started to point higher and higher and higher in the sky until the brothers realized, wait a second, our shadows are disappearing. We have to run back to camp. So they started to run faster and faster and faster and faster until they couldn't really hear their feet on the ground. They just heard this pitter patter of wings. It was really odd. So the one brother said, hey, can you hear that? And turned and said, wah! You're a bird. And the other brother said, what are you talking about? And turned and said, wah! You're a bird. And they realized, oh no, Grandmother Moon, our grandfather's son, had taken them for his own. Oh, they had to warn their sisters, so they flew back to camp, and they tried to open the teepee, but little birds cannot open teepees. And so they knew they had to warn their sister, and they waited for her to come home. They waited beside this funny bird, which kind of reminded them a little bit of their sister because of all the freckles. But they thought, that's just weird. That's a weird coincidence. And so they waited up in the tree, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and the sun started to set, and their eyes grew heavier and heavier and heavier until they fell fast asleep. Then that funny bird that was beside them, that they didn't realize was their sister, woke up. She fluffed her feathers, and she looked around at these two funny birds beside her, and she said, if I didn't know any better, I would say those birds looked like my brothers because of their beautiful black caps, their smiling little faces, and even though their eyes were closed, you could tell they had very curious eyes. But she didn't think much of it. But then she heard a clattering in the back. What was that sound? It was horses. It was the wagon. It was their parents. Oh, their parents were home. She had to tell her mother. And so she started swooping around her mother, but her mother couldn't hear her because the way she was swooping, it was so silent. And she tried to call out to her mother, Mother, it's me. Mother, it's me. You have to help us. And all that came out was, woo-hoo, woo-hoo. And she tried again, Mother, it's me. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. And the mother looked at this funny bird that was circling and making these odd sounds. She didn't really think much of it. And she got to the teepee and she said, Children, we're home. Children, we're home. Children, we're here. Children? And then she started to worry. And she said to her husband, okay, load up the wagon. I'm going to go look for the kids. And so she started wandering further and further and further, calling them, my girl, my boys, where are you? And no matter where she looked, their favorite hiding spots, everywhere, she couldn't find them. And that funny bird was following her silently, no matter where she went. And then she came in that unfamiliar clearing. And as she was in that unfamiliar clearing, Grandmother Moon started to rise higher and higher and higher in the sky. She saw these beautiful flowers. She leaned in. Oh, the smell was amazing. It reminded her of her girl. And the color looked like the moon, and the flower, the petals looked like her favorite skirt swishing back and forth. It reminded her of her daughter. And then she started to wonder, I wonder if my daughter had found this flower. And then that funny bird bounced in front of her and looked up and pleaded, woo-hoo, woo-hoo. As the mother looked down, she saw those big golden eyes, those beautiful freckles all over her face, and she realized that was not just a funny bird. That was her daughter. She said, oh, my girl, Grandmother Moon has taken you for her own. Oh, my girl, I am so sad to lose you, but now you and this beautiful moonflower will protect children at night and guide them home in a good way. But you'll also keep Grandmother Moon company, so she will never take another child again. And the owl, which was her daughter, agreed, woo-hoo, woo-hoo, and it had a purpose. And then she said, we have to find your brothers. Where are they? and they looked high and low but couldn't find them. They went back to camp because the bird was starting to get pretty tired. And as she flew up in the tree, she was beside those two funny little birds. And she fell asleep. And those other little birds woke up. And they saw their mother and they freaked out. Oh, mother, mother, it's us, mother, mother, it's us. And all that came out were chickadee-dee-dee-dee, cheeseburger. And again, they tried to call out, mother, mother, chickadee-dee-dee-dee, mother, cheeseburger. And so they knew their voices were gone, but they had to get their mother's attention somehow. So they were flying around and following her as she was searching for them in the forest until she came to another unfamiliar clearing. And in this clearing, there was these big, beautiful flowers with huge seed pods in the center. And she watched as the funny little birds were pecking at those seeds and eating them. And she thought, that's hilarious. That's something my boys would do. And she looked at the color of the flowers with the reds and the yellows and the orange, and she said, oh, my sons would love those flowers. And then she thought for a moment, my sons. And then those funny little birds looked at her and bounced right in front of her and pleaded at her feet, chickadee-dee-dee-dee-dee, cheeseburger. And as she looked down, she realized those weren't funny little birds at all. Those were her boys. She recognized their beautiful black caps, their big grins, their curious eyes. She said, oh, my boys, grandfather's son has taken you for his own. I will miss you. But now you and these beautiful sunflowers will guide all of our children home during the day and protect them, and also keep grandfather's son company so that he never takes another child for his own again. And so from that day forward, those children, the owl and the chickadees, the moonflower and the sunflower, always guide our children home and always keep grandfather sun company and grandmother moon company. And that is the chickadee and the owl story. Hi. And so now I'm going to share the chickadee song. Normally I love to do it as a call and response, but I don't have anybody to call and respond with me. My teenagers are like, no. Awesome. But I'm going to try and sing it through as that call and response. So one will be quieter. And yeah, this is the chickadee song. And yeah, this one came through me in ceremony. So I was at a sweat and I was asking for a song to share with community, to share with not only kids but adults, something that was simple but joyful and connected and taught us good lessons about listening to each other, because one of the words literally means hear, to hear each other. And so as I was asking for this, we had this round in the sweat lodge, and every time we'd open it, all we would hear is the chickadee-dee-dee cheeseburger, the birds just like chittering back and forth to each other. The third round, it was so hot that everybody actually left the lodge, except for me. I'm used to hot. I love hot sweats. And so I was just kind of like hanging out, and then all of a sudden these little chickadees started coming in and out of the face of the lodge, and I was like, huh. And then they were looking at me going, chickadee-dee-dee-dee, cheeseburger. I was like, oh, this is your song. And so when that TP flap closed, this song came out of me in honor of them. And so, yeah, this is the chickadee song. Remember to listen twice as much as we speak. Hop the oh ho ho, hop the oh ho, hop the oh ho 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 ho, hop the oh ho, hop the oh ho ho, hop the oh ho, hop the oh ho ho, hop the oh ho Song. I am so thankful. That was a gift to me from the universe. I love it. Thanks, chickadees. And so, I'm gonna share a couple more songs. So, yeah, there's one song that I wrote, and then sometimes I'm trying to like remember it so that I can share it, and then, of course, I blank right away. But oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna do the closing song. So this is, I'm gonna call the song "Journey." I think for the journey that I've had, the daughter that I lost, and just to honor our family and our friends and each other, and remember that, you know, we'll always meet each other again. We never have a word for goodbye in a lot of our languages because we don't say goodbye. We say until we meet again, or see you soon, or to your journey until your journey leads me back, or leads you back to me. So that's really what the song honors. So yeah, this is Journey. into my journey until we meet again. Awesome. And so the last song I want to share before I head out is the traveling song that I learned from my elder Sharon Turner. And yeah, it's just a beautiful song, a way to send people out. And so I think with the Journey song, that is also going to be one of my departing songs, which I'm so thankful to be able to carry it with me. But I've been thinking a lot about Sharon and her teachings, and really about this guidance that she's given me on her journey before she passed, and just how I missed that, her voice of reason, her voice of gentleness and kindness, and that picked me up that she gave to so many people in the community just by her gentleness and her wisdom, and I'm thankful for those times in that moment with her. And so this song, I thought it was gone after she passed away, but then it came back to me, and it shows that all roads will lead you exactly where you need to be. All roads will bring you back to those teachings if you're willing to just follow them. And really that journey is part of that. You know, those hardships as well as those beautiful things that happen to you, that really shapes and molds who you are. It gives you gifts that you don't even realize at the time until later on when you're reflecting back on them. And so yeah, this is the traveling song. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. 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 Hey ya, ho. Awesome. Well, hi everyone. Miigwech, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for your beautiful, kind words. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful journey. And I should hopefully be back next week. But then the week after, I'm taking a little bit of a vacation. I'm taking a vacation. Doesn't happen much. And so that's actually a lie. I'm not actually taking a vacation. I am going somewhere else, and I am working on my music, so it'll be good. But which everyone, hi again. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. I hope you all have a beautiful journey, and enjoy the summer. Remember, this is a time where we reap all of those seeds that we have laid for the last season, and just really look at everything with joy and gratitude. And yeah, have a beautiful week. Miigwech, everyone. Saki hit the win. Love you. Mwah.